She said he died. At dinner, she told the truth. Now the family may never recover. Alright, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor, subscribe and tell us where you're watching from. The road to her mother's house was lined with memory. Maple trees arched over the two-lane highway like they were trying to hold back time, their summer leaves brittle and fading at the edges. Lena gripped the steering wheel harder than she needed to. Her knuckles ached, but she didn't loosen her grip. Her GPS had gone silent 10 minutes ago. This route didn't change, not in 30 years. It was the kind of road that taught you how to leave and dared you to return. The house appeared like a ghost out of the trees, white shutters, aging brick, a porch that still sagged slightly on the left side. She pulled into the gravel driveway and let the car idle longer than necessary. Her fingers hovered over the key, unsure. Just dinner, she whispered to herself. Just dinner, and then you go back to your real life. She killed the engine. The moment she stepped out of the car, the smell hit her: cut grass, faded roses, and something sweet but dying. The scent of late summer in a town that time forgot. Her heels crunched on gravel. Her pulse tapped at the base of her throat. The front door creaked open before she could knock. Lena, her mother said. Marjorie's silhouette filled the doorway, tall and composed. She wore a pale blue blouse, sleeves rolled neatly to her elbows, a dish towel slung over one shoulder. Her silver hair was pinned into its usual tight bun, not a strand out of place. She looked like someone who had been waiting too long to act surprised. Hi, Mom, Lena replied, stepping forward. Their embrace was short, more contact than comfort. You look tired, Marjorie said. Not unkindly. Not kindly either. Long drive? Lena nodded. The usual traffic. The hallway smelled the same. Pine-scented floor polish. Faint perfume. A memory of cinnamon gum her father used to chew, lingering like a ghost. Her boots clicked on the hardwood. The walls were lined with family photos, unchanged in 15 years. Smiling snapshots frozen in years they all now avoided talking about. Your room's ready, Marjorie said, walking ahead of her. Just like you left it. Lena glanced into the living room as they passed. Plastic still covered the couch. A floral rug lay perfectly centered beneath a table that hadn't moved in 2 decades. Everything preserved, like a museum exhibit of the life they pretended they had. How's work? Marjorie asked from the kitchen. Lena hesitated. Busy. Still working in marketing, was it? Lena nearly laughed. Brand strategy. For tech. Right. A pause. You always were good with words. It wasn't a compliment. It was a warning, don't use them here. She dropped her suitcase by the stairs and glanced out the window. Her reflection stared back, hollow-eyed. She looked too sharp for this house. Too brittle. Her blouse too dark, her lipstick too red. She had carved herself into a woman this place didn't recognize, and maybe never had. She turned back toward the kitchen and said, Need help with dinner? Her mother looked over her shoulder, eyes scanning her daughter's face like a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. No, she said. Everything's under control. Of course it was. Lena opened the fridge anyway, more for a breath of cold air than actual help. Inside, everything was organized, Tupperware labeled, vegetables washed and bagged. A row of wine bottles stood untouched. Marjorie never drank. She didn't need to. Her silence did the numbing for her. I saw Caleb's car out front, Lena said carefully. He arrived an hour ago, Marjorie replied. He's in the backyard. Smoking. Lena's eyebrows lifted. I thought he quit. He says he did. Silence stretched between them. Not accusatory, just thick. Lena opened her mouth to ask about Maya but closed it again. Too soon. The air in this house was full of landmines. Best to step lightly. Marjorie wiped her hands on the dish towel and turned to face her daughter. It's good you're here. Lena waited for more. An apology. A smile. Even a lie. But nothing followed. Yeah, Lena said quietly. It's something. Lena was pouring herself a glass of water when the screen door creaked open again. Still alive in here, a voice called out, familiar, gruff, worn like gravel after rain. Caleb stepped into the kitchen carrying a six-pack of soda and a pack of gum. He looked older than 37. Not just older, tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. His dark hair had grayed at the temples, and the leather jacket he always wore in high school now hung looser on his shoulders. Lena turned slowly, masking her unease with a practiced smirk. Well, well. The prodigal son returns. Caleb chuckled, but there was no humor in it. If I'm the prodigal, what does that make you? More like the ghost. They stared at each other for a beat too long, two adults pretending their childhood hadn't forged scars into habits. He placed the soda in the fridge and leaned against the counter. Mom's still cooking like it's Thanksgiving. She's determined, Lena said. Caleb rubbed the back of his neck. She ask you any questions yet? Only the vague kind. That's a warm-up. Wait till dinner. She'll hit the real nerve. They shared a look, something unspoken, years old. It didn't soften anything, but it acknowledged a truth: they'd both learned how to speak around pain, not through it. Just then, the sound of heels tapping against the porch made them both look toward the door. Maya entered like sunshine cracking through storm clouds. Her dress was pale green, her hair curled just enough, and a soft pink diamond glinted on her left hand. She squealed and wrapped her arms around Lena before she could brace for it. Oh my God, you came. Maya said, squeezing her. I was so scared you'd cancel again. Lena allowed the hug, stiff at first, then looser. Hey, Em. You look amazing, Maya said. I mean, tired, but still gorgeous. Like a sad fashion model. Great, Lena muttered. My dream aesthetic. Caleb raised an eyebrow. Sad fashion model? What happened to bitter lawyer? Wrong sibling, Lena shot back. Maya laughed nervously, but it didn't carry. Something about her tone held strain, too cheerful, too practiced. A performer trying to maintain balance in a circus where everyone refused to admit the tent was on fire. She reached into her bag and pulled out a bottle of wine. I brought the good stuff. Or, well, expensive. I figure one of us should indulge. Marjorie's voice came from the other room. You know the rule, no alcohol at the table. Maya flinched, just slightly. Of course, she called back. It's just for later. The siblings exchanged glances. They migrated to the dining room, where the table was already set like a stage, linen napkins, gleaming silverware, centerpieces too elaborate for a casual family dinner. There were 6 place settings, though there were only 5 of them now. One chair remained at the far end, slightly pulled out. Lena frowned. Why the extra chair? Marjorie stepped in, carrying a casserole dish, her expression unreadable. It's habit. Silence stretched again. Then Marjorie added, too calmly, and I thought it might be time to stop pretending the space wasn't always there. Caleb muttered, that's rich, and took a seat. Maya busied herself adjusting forks. Lena stood, not sure where to sit, until she chose the spot furthest from her mother. A small rebellion. Dinner began with pleasantries. Maya talked about her engagement. His name was David, he was sweet and steady, the opposite of every man she'd dated before. Caleb cracked a joke about wedding costs. Marjorie complimented the menu she herself had made. But none of it felt rooted. It was like watching actors read their lines with eyes trained on the next scene. Lena pushed food around her plate. She wasn't hungry, but eating kept her hands busy. Her thoughts, however, spiraled. She could feel it. The electricity under the skin of this evening. The wrongness humming beneath the normal. Like the floorboards were ready to give way. She met her mother's eyes across the table, and in that brief second, she saw it, a flicker. Not fear. Not guilt. Something else. Resolve. The clink of forks against plates filled the dining room like rain tapping on glass, soft, rhythmic, and vaguely disquieting. "So, Lena," Marjorie said, folding her napkin with military precision, "any new projects at work?" Lena hesitated. Her fork hovered mid-air. "We're rebranding a chain of grief counseling clinics." Marjorie blinked. "That's ironic." "I thought so," Lena replied flatly. Caleb snorted into his glass of soda. Maya gave him a sharp look, the kind that begged, "Please not tonight." But it was already too late. Caleb leaned back in his chair. "Is this where we pretend we all turned out fine again? Because I'm out of material." Marjorie didn't flinch. She never did. "We're having a nice dinner," she said quietly. "Sure," Caleb muttered. "Nice. This salmon's fantastic, by the way. Pairs well with generational dysfunction." Maya reached for the bread basket like she could wedge carbs between them and the rising tension. "So, has anyone heard from Aunt Tessa lately?" Lena watched her sister closely. Maya's smile was stretched too thin, glossed lips hiding panic. Marjorie answered without looking up. "She's in Colorado. Joined some yoga commune. Or cult." Caleb chuckled. "Sounds healthy." Lena tried to swallow, but her throat was tight. The room had grown colder, somehow. Or maybe it was her. Her old chair, the one at the corner of the table, still had that uneven leg. She remembered being 7, stacking napkins under it so she wouldn't rock every time she moved. Her eyes drifted to the far wall. The family portrait still hung there, taken when she was 12. Caleb grinning too wide. Maya holding a teddy bear. Their father standing tall behind them, hands on Marjorie's shoulders. It was the only picture of him still in the house. Mini flashback, woven with sensory detail. Lena blinked, and suddenly she was under the table again. 7 years old, holding her breath while dishes crashed above. Her mother's voice, clipped and urgent. Her father's low rumble turning sharp. The sound of glass shattering. Her own small hands gripping the table leg until her knuckles went white. Back in the present, she looked down. Her hand had done it again, gripping the table leg without realizing. Maya touched her wrist gently. "You okay?" Lena nodded. "Just, long day." Across the table, Marjorie had gone quiet. Her fingers absently stroked the edge of something tucked into her apron pocket, a folded piece of paper, or maybe a photo. Lena noticed, but said nothing. "Mom," Caleb said, his tone suddenly sober. "Why did you keep the chair?" Marjorie didn't look up. "Because he sat there." Caleb's jaw tightened. "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have," she replied. Her voice was level, but her hand had stopped moving. The air shifted. Maya jumped in again, this time with forceful cheer. "Lena, remember that game we used to play with the gravy boat?" Caleb groaned. "Oh God. The royal scepter of doom." Lena smirked despite herself. "We made you bow before it." "You made me kiss it," Caleb shot back, "on Thanksgiving. In front of Grandma." Maya laughed, a genuine one this time, and for a second, just a second, the tension eased. But like all temporary peace, it was doomed to crack. Marjorie stood abruptly, collecting empty plates. "Leave it, Mom," Maya said. "We'll clean up later." Marjorie shook her head. "I need a minute." She disappeared into the kitchen. The sound of the faucet running filled the space she left behind. Lena rose quietly and followed, as if drawn by something unspeakable. The kitchen was steamy, warm, and smelled faintly of lemon and starch. Marjorie stood with her back to Lena, scrubbing an already clean dish. Her shoulders were rigid. "What's in your pocket?" Lena asked gently. Marjorie didn't turn around. "Just a reminder." "A reminder of what?" "Of why this night matters." Lena moved closer. "What's going on, Mom?" Marjorie finally turned. Her eyes were glassy, but not from tears. From exhaustion. The look of a woman who had carried a secret too long and was cracking under the weight. "I need you to be strong tonight," she said. "For what?" "For the truth." Lena swallowed. "You mean Dad?" Marjorie hesitated, then nodded. "The silence," she said, voice trembling, "it's been long enough." What is she about to say? And why now? What broke inside her that made this the moment she can no longer hold it in? Back in the dining room, the siblings waited. The chair at the end of the table, his chair, stood like a ghost between them. The family had just begun dessert. Maya was slicing the lemon meringue pie, her favorite since childhood, though she hadn't touched a fork yet. Caleb sat slouched, thumbing the label off his soda bottle. Lena had barely taken 2 bites of hers. The sugar stuck to her teeth like a lie she couldn't swallow. Marjorie returned to the table with a small dish of whipped cream and placed it in the center, then stood at the head of the table, her hands resting on the back of the empty chair. His chair. Caleb looked up first. "You sitting down, or?" "No," she said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. Something shifted in the room. Maya's knife paused mid-cut. Lena set her fork down without a sound. Marjorie's eyes swept across the table, landing on each of them like checkpoints. "I need to say something," she said, "and I need you to let me finish before you speak." Lena's stomach tightened. The pie suddenly tasted metallic. "I've lied to you," Marjorie said. "For a very long time." The room stilled. No clinks. No chewing. Even the kitchen clock seemed to pause. She took a breath, sharp, surgical. "Your father didn't die," she said. "He left. Time fractured." "What?" Caleb's voice cracked. Maya blinked. I don't understand." Lena just stared. The words didn't register at first. They felt foreign. Not real. Not in this house. Not at this table. Marjorie gripped the chair harder, her knuckles whitened. "I helped him leave," she continued. "I told you he died because I thought it would keep you safe. I thought," her voice wavered for the first time. "I thought silence was a kind of mercy." Glass shattered. Caleb had dropped his soda bottle. The brown liquid spread across the table like a wound, seeping into the linen. "You what?" he breathed. "You said he had a heart attack. You said he died in his sleep." Marjorie didn't flinch. "I lied." Caleb stood, knocking his chair backward. "You lied. For 25 years. You let us grieve a man who wasn't dead?" Maya's eyes filled with tears. "Where is he?" "I don't know," Marjorie said. "I haven't known in years." "But he's alive?" Lena asked. Her voice was soft, too soft for the weight of the question. Marjorie nodded. "As far as I know." Silence returned, only now it wasn't peace. It was aftermath. The silence after an earthquake, when you wait to see what else will fall. Maya reached for Caleb's arm, but he pulled away. "No," he said. Don't make this better." "I'm not," Maya whispered. "I don't know how." Lena's hands trembled in her lap. She forced herself to look at her mother. "Why?" she asked. Marjorie finally sat down. Her shoulders sagged, as though the truth had been holding her up all this time. "He was violent," she said. "And charming. And dangerous in ways I didn't understand until too late. He wasn't sick, he was cruel. And the system didn't protect women like it should have. So I made a deal. I gave him money. I told him to leave and never come back." "You faked his death," Caleb snapped. "You staged a funeral. I needed it to be real for you. For all of us." Maya shook her head, lips trembling. "You taught us to grieve a ghost. I lit candles. I prayed. I missed him so much I couldn't sleep for years." "And he was out there?" "I did it for you," Marjorie said. "Because I knew one day, one of you would become him." A beat of silence. Then Caleb slammed his palm against the table. Is that what this is? You thought I was him? You drank like him. You shouted like him. I was terrified. You broke me, he roared. You made me feel abandoned. I thought he died loving us. That was all I had to hold on to. Lena stood slowly. Her voice was quiet but cut through the chaos. I need air. She left the room. Her coat was still draped over the banister. She pulled it on, grabbed a cigarette she hadn't touched in 3 years from her purse, and stepped out into the night. The porch light buzzed. Crickets chirped like nothing had changed. She lit the cigarette with shaking hands. In the reflection of the dark window, she saw herself, and behind her, through the sheer curtains, her family collapsing one truth at a time. The screen door creaked open behind Lena, but she didn't turn around. Footsteps padded softly across the porch. Maya sank into the old wooden bench beside her. It gave a familiar groan under their weight, the same sound it made when they were kids and tried to swing their feet in unison. You started smoking again? Maya asked softly. No, Lena said, taking a long drag. Just couldn't remember why I quit. Maya pulled her knees up to her chest, resting her chin on them. She looked much younger suddenly, like the girl Lena used to sneak out with to pick wildflowers behind the shed. I think I'm going to throw up, Maya whispered. You're not the only one. I feel like I'm in someone else's memory. Like this can't possibly be real. Lena flicked ash off the edge of the porch. It's always been real. We just didn't know the story. From inside the house, raised voices erupted. Caleb. Lena stood, instinctively, but Maya tugged her arm. Let him, she said. He needs to. Inside, Caleb paced the kitchen like a caged animal. Marjorie stood by the sink, arms crossed, watching him unravel. You don't get to explain this away, he shouted. You don't get to say it was for our good and walk away clean. I'm not trying to be clean, Marjorie said. I'm trying to be honest. At last. Caleb laughed bitterly. You don't get to wear that like a badge. I was terrified of what he'd do to you. To all of you. And no one would help me. So I did what I could. You did what you wanted. You erased him. Marjorie's voice sharpened. He was erasing me, every day. You were too young to see it. But I saw what was coming. I saw the damage he would do. You think I didn't feel the damage anyway? Caleb's voice cracked. You think growing up with half a story didn't tear me apart? He stepped forward, chest heaving. I built my whole life around missing him, around trying to be better than some imaginary version of him. You let me believe he loved us. That he died trying to be a good man. Tears welled in his eyes, but he didn't wipe them. And all this time, he was just gone. Marjorie's shoulders sagged. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it. Her voice, when it came, was nearly a whisper. I thought silence was safer than the truth. Outside, Maya still hadn't moved. He said something once, she murmured, staring at the dark horizon. David. He said every family has one room they never let guests into. Where the real stuff lives. Lena's cigarette burned low. Yeah? I think ours has a whole floor. She laughed softly, bitterly, then wiped at her eyes. I used to think maybe Dad wasn't really dead, Maya admitted. Not because I suspected anything. Just. I don't know. A feeling. Like something had been cut off too neatly. Like grief without a body. Lena looked at her. Did you ever say anything? Maya shook her head. I didn't want to be the one who opened the door. I just wanted us to be okay. You always do. I'm tired of being okay. They sat in silence. Inside, Caleb had collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. Marjorie poured him a glass of water and set it gently on the table. He didn't touch it. Lena finally stepped back inside. She leaned against the doorframe. Do we know where he went? Marjorie didn't turn. I have some old letters. He sent them for a while. Then he stopped. Why now? Lena asked. Why tell us now? Marjorie looked over at her, eyes rimmed with red, face hollow. Because secrets rot in the walls. And I'm tired of living in a house that's falling apart. Maya followed her sister inside. She moved to Caleb's side and touched his shoulder. He didn't shrug her off this time. You're not him, she whispered. He didn't answer. Lena watched them all, her broken brother, her unraveling sister, her mother crumbling beneath the weight of truth, and for the first time that night, she didn't feel like the outsider. She felt like the mirror. The only one cold enough to reflect it all. But even mirrors crack. The box was small, weathered, and locked with a rusted latch. Marjorie placed it gently on the coffee table in the living room, between untouched mugs of coffee and the faint scent of burnt lemon meringue. She knelt beside it like someone opening a casket, slow, reverent, afraid. Lena sat across from her, arms crossed. Maya hovered by the window, wringing her hands. Caleb leaned against the doorway, refusing to come any closer. Marjorie opened the latch. Inside were three things. A worn envelope, edges curled and ink faded. A thin police report. A photograph, cracked at the corner. She picked up the report first. This was filed when Caleb was 8. You don't remember it. You were asleep. I told you it was thunder. She handed the paper to Lena, who took it slowly. Her eyes scanned the typed lines, domestic disturbance. No arrests made. Children present. Caleb looked away. I called the police because he threw a glass plate at me, Marjorie said. It missed, but only because Maya cried. He was drunk. Furious. Said I was turning his children against him. Said I was making them weak. She held up the photograph. It was of their father, younger than Lena remembered. He was holding baby Maya, smiling, but his eyes told a different story. I used to stare at this photo for hours, asking myself if I imagined it all. If maybe I made it worse than it was. If maybe I could have tried harder to fix him. She set the photo down, her hand trembling slightly, and then the letters started coming. After he left. Long letters. Apologies. Love bombing. Promises. He said he'd change. He said he missed you. Why didn't you let him? Maya whispered. If he was trying to be better. Because by then, Marjorie interrupted, I had found a bruise on Lena's shoulder she didn't remember getting. The room went still. Lena's heart stopped. What? You were 5, Marjorie said. I asked where it came from. You said you fell. I didn't think much of it until later. But then I remembered him yanking you by the arm that day, after you spilled his coffee. A flicker of a memory flared in Lena's mind, heat, fear, the snap of her father's voice. A hand around her wrist, her feet lifting off the ground. Clumsy little thing, he had said. She had laughed, nervously. Thought it was her fault. I didn't want to take the chance, Marjorie said. So I lied. I told you he had a heart attack. I staged the funeral. And I buried the past with it. Caleb stepped forward, fists clenched. You should have told me. You were just starting to get better, she said. I couldn't risk opening that door for you. Do you think keeping it closed saved me? He snapped. It broke me. All these years, I thought my pain was guilt. Like I hadn't mourned him hard enough. Like I wasn't worthy of his love because I didn't cry enough. Minnie Hook, what happens to a man who builds his identity on the grief of a man who never died, and was never worthy? Marjorie met his gaze. I was trying to save your future. You stole my past, he said. Silence fell like dust. Thick. Slow. Unavoidable. Maya finally spoke. I knew some of it. Lena turned to her. What? Maya bit her lip. A few years ago, I found one of the letters. It was stuffed in the back of a drawer. I read just enough to know he didn't die. But I was getting ready to move in with David. Everything was fragile. I thought, maybe it was just some delusion Mom had written to herself. Or something he sent from jail. You knew, Caleb whispered, eyes wide. Not really, Maya said, voice cracking. I convinced myself I didn't. Lena stood. You kept it from us. I didn't know what I was keeping. I thought maybe I was the crazy one. Or maybe you already knew and didn't talk about it. That's what we do in this family, we don't talk. Lena walked to the fireplace. Stared at the blackened hearth. I remember something, she said slowly. A night I heard screaming. Not words, just sound. And then quiet. I thought it was a dream. It wasn't, Marjorie said. I remember hiding under the table, Lena continued. The tiles were cold. I could smell soap. And blood. Marjorie didn't respond. Her silence was the answer. Caleb sat down heavily on the arm of the couch. So what now? No one's coming to fix us, Lena said. We know now. That's it. No, Maya said softly, it's not it. She pointed at the box. There's still that envelope. They all looked at it. The final unopened letter. The envelope lay on the table like a live wire, thin, trembling with implication. No one moved. Maya finally reached for it. Her fingers hesitated at the edge. It's addressed to all of us, she said. No postmark. He must have dropped it off. Marjorie nodded slowly. He did. It was the last one. I never opened it. Caleb scoffed. You mean you kept a message from our father and just sat on it for 20 years? I was afraid, she admitted. Of what it might say, of how it might undo what I'd built to protect you. What you built was a lie, Caleb said. And it broke us anyway. Lena stepped forward. Then let's read it. All of it. Now. Maya opened the envelope with shaking hands. The letter was written in neat cursive on thick paper, yellowed at the edges. She unfolded it slowly, voice trembling. To my children, if you're reading this, it means your mother finally told you the truth. Or maybe you found this by accident. Either way, you deserve to know my side, even if you never agree with it. I didn't want to leave. I begged to stay, but your mother made it impossible. She said if I tried to contact you again, she'd have me arrested. She said I was dangerous, but I only ever wanted to be your father. To be loved by you. And I know I failed at that. If you hate me, I understand. But please know I thought of you every day. I watched from afar when I could. I kept birthday cards in drawers, gifts I never mailed. I kept your photos. You were everything. And I lost you. I hope you grew up happy. I hope you never needed me. But if you ever read this and still want to know me, I'll be in the place we once watched the fireworks, the dock behind Hillard's farm. Every 4th of July, until I die. Dad. Maya folded the letter slowly. No one spoke for a full minute. Then Caleb exploded. He makes himself the victim in this? After what he did? Lena's voice was quiet but icy. This sounds like someone who rewrote his own past. He left us, Caleb spat. He hurt us. And now we're supposed to feel sorry for him? No one said that, Maya whispered. You didn't have to, he growled. You've been playing peacemaker since you were old enough to spell it. But this, you can't patch with a goddamn pie and a smile. Maya flinched like she'd been slapped. I'm trying, Caleb. I'm always trying. And that's the problem, he snapped. You try so hard to keep everything calm that you let people drown just so the surface stays still. Lena stepped between them. Enough. Her voice cracked like thunder. Both turned to her. She looked at Maya. You knew something and didn't say it. I thought I was protecting you. No, Lena said. You were protecting yourself. From discomfort. From mess. From being the one who tore off the veil. Maya's face crumpled. Do you think I haven't paid for it? I can't even look at David some days without wondering who I am. I don't trust myself. I don't know what's real. And now, this letter. She broke off, covering her mouth. Caleb sat back down heavily, burying his face in his hands. Lena moved to the staircase and looked up toward her old bedroom. I need to be alone, she said. Just a minute. Marjorie opened her mouth, but said nothing. Lena climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking with memory. Her room was untouched. Pale green wallpaper. A book still on the nightstand. A dusty jewelry box. The dollhouse her father gave her for Christmas when she was 6 sat in the corner. She walked over and opened the little door. Inside, tucked against a miniature armchair, was a folded note. Her breath caught. She pulled it out. It was childish. Crayon drawn. Her name, misspelled in red. Lena, you're my star. Don't forget me. Daddy. Her knees gave out. She sat on the floor, clutching the note, the sound of her breath thick and jagged. Downstairs, no one moved. The box still sat open on the table. The truth lay all around them. And it had teeth. Lena didn't sleep. She lay on the twin bed in her childhood room, staring at the ceiling. The shadows of the dollhouse and old posters stretched across the walls like elongated ghosts. Outside, the wind picked up. The house creaked in response, bones of memory shifting in the dark. The crayon note lay on her chest. She had read it over and over, but the words never changed. Lena, you're my star. What kind of man could say that and still raise his hand to her? Or worse, what kind of child forgets something like that? She turned onto her side, eyes landing on the crack in the wall beside the window. It had been there since she was 10. Her father had punched the wall after a fight with Marjorie. He said he hit it by accident, but Lena remembered the sound, the deep, hollow thud of drywall giving way. She used to run her fingers over the crack like a seam in the world. Now, it looked like a scar. She got up, feet touching the cold floor, and walked to the closet. Inside were boxes of old schoolwork, photos, forgotten sweaters. She dug until she found it, a shoebox labeled Lena, 1996. She sat on the floor and opened it. Inside were drawings, birthday cards, one of her report cards from 3rd grade. At the bottom was a small notebook, pink with stickers peeling off. She opened to a random page. Mom and Dad yelled again. Caleb told me to hide. I went under the table. I stayed very quiet. Her breath caught. The next entry, I saw Daddy throw the glass. Mommy cried. Then she told me it was a dream. I wanted it to be. The words blurred as tears filled her eyes. And then it came, not like a flash, but like a wave. Heavy. Relentless. Memory returning not in images, but in sensation. She was under the table, the cold tiles. The shadow of her father's legs. The sound of a glass shattering against the wall. Her mother's voice trembling. Caleb's body pressed beside hers, whispering, "Don't move." And then, her father's hand grabbing her by the arm. Yanking her out. Her feet scraping against the floor. The sting of his grip. The smell of beer and sweat. He didn't hit her. Not with a fist. But the bruise on her arm was real. The fear even more so. She gasped and dropped the notebook. Her hands were shaking. Downstairs, she heard someone move. She went down barefoot, one step at a time, the old wood cool against her skin. Marjorie was in the kitchen, sitting at the table with a cup of tea, staring into nothing. Her eyes were sunken, her hands wrapped around the mug like it was the only thing keeping her steady. Lena stood in the doorway, watching her. "He did hurt me," she said quietly. Marjorie looked up, startled. "What?" "I didn't remember it. But I do now." He didn't hit me that night, but he grabbed me so hard I bruised. I was 5. You asked me what happened, and I said I fell. Marjorie's eyes filled with tears. I believed it was my fault, Lena said. That if I had just been quieter, or better. She trailed off. Her voice cracked. Marjorie stood, slowly. Her expression was devastation and relief at once. I never wanted you to carry that, she whispered. But I did, Lena said. Even without the memory, I carried it. They stared at each other across the kitchen, mother and daughter, wounded and wounding. I hated you for lying, Lena said. I wanted to believe I had the right to mourn him. I wanted to believe I had a father worth remembering. Marjorie took a step closer. You did, once, for a little while. But then I saw the change. And I knew the man he was becoming would hurt you all. I couldn't stop him, so I made him disappear. Lena didn't respond right away. Then, finally, she nodded. I don't forgive you yet, she said. But I think I understand. Marjorie didn't ask for more. She simply reached out, placing her hand over Lena's. They stood like that for a long time, two women who had both survived the same man in different ways. Upstairs, the house was still. But inside Lena, the silence had cracked. Caleb was gone by sunrise. Maya noticed first, his coat was missing from the rack, his car gone from the driveway, and the guest room bed still perfectly made. Lena found the bathroom window open, letting in a breeze that fluttered the shower curtain like a ghost's breath. Panic hit fast, silent, and complete. He's not answering his phone, Maya said, pacing the living room. Straight to voicemail. What if he? Lena raised a hand. Let's not jump to worst case yet. Marjorie stood near the fireplace, arms crossed, her lips pressed into a thin line. He wouldn't start drinking again, Maya said, half to herself. He wouldn't. Lena grabbed the car keys. I'll check the old workshop. Maya blinked. What? The one Dad used to keep behind the hill, she said. It's abandoned now, but it's where Caleb used to sneak off to as a teenager. I have a feeling. She didn't wait for permission. The road to the workshop was overgrown, the gravel drive nearly swallowed by weeds. Lena pulled up beside the rusted chain-link gate, which hung open like a jaw unhinged. The barn-like structure beyond stood weathered, gray, sagging under its own roof. She stepped inside. Dust hung in the air like memory. The place smelled like sawdust, oil, and regret. And there he was. Caleb sat on an old wooden stool by the workbench, hands clasped between his knees. He hadn't shaved. He hadn't changed clothes. But there was no bottle near him, only a battered radio, an empty coffee cup, and the silence. He didn't look at her. You came, he said. I had a feeling. He nodded slowly. This place is disgusting. Yeah. But you always liked it. He gave a half shrug. It's the only place I could think of that didn't lie to me. Lena leaned against the opposite wall, arms crossed. Still sober? Caleb held up the empty coffee cup. This was the hardest night of my life. And I drank caffeine. They sat in silence for a moment. I used to come here after school, he said. Even after Dad left. Mom thought I was at practice or working on college apps. But I was here. Building shelves that never held anything. Tinkering with tools I didn't know how to use. Just being alone. You needed space. I needed to scream. But I didn't know how. He turned toward her. I thought he died loving us, Lena. I thought I didn't measure up because I wasn't enough to keep him alive. That guilt, he pressed a fist to his chest. It rooted in me. Grew through me. Became me. I know. No, Caleb said. You knew anger. Maya knew denial. I knew longing. I built a whole damn personality around the ghost of a man who would have hit me if I stood too tall. Lena swallowed hard. I didn't drink because I was wild, he said. I drank because it blurred the edges. Made the guilt bearable. Made the questions go quiet. And now? Now, he said softly, they're louder than ever. Lena walked over and sat beside him on a toolbox. Dust clouded the air with every shift of movement. I remembered something last night, she said. He grabbed me. Left a bruise. I forgot it for years. Caleb looked at her, startled. He didn't hit me, she continued, but it was the first time I realized I was afraid of him. And I think Mom saw it too. Caleb stared at the ground. So she was right. She was desperate. He exhaled slowly. And now we're the fallout. They sat together for a long time, saying nothing. Just breathing. Just existing in the wreckage of truth. Caleb finally broke the silence. I don't know how to be without the lie. It was the only solid thing I had. You start small, Lena said. You wake up. You drink your coffee. You don't drink anything else. You tell the truth when it hurts. He nodded slowly. I'm not okay, Lena. I know. Me neither. He looked at her. Do you think we'll ever be okay? I don't know, she said. But we're still here. That has to count for something. Caleb's eyes welled, but he didn't wipe them. He reached out, and she took his hand. And there, in that broken, dust-covered workshop, the siblings sat with their pain, not hiding, not fixing, just holding it. Maya found her mother alone in the garden. Marjorie knelt near the hydrangeas, pruning dead blossoms with gloved hands. She moved with the calm precision of someone pretending nothing inside her was unraveling. The morning light spilled across the grass, turning the dew silver. Birds chirped in the hedges like they hadn't heard the shouting the night before. Maya stood on the stone path, arms crossed, watching her mother trim away what no longer bloomed. Always cleaning up, she said. Marjorie looked up, surprised. They'll rot if I don't. Maybe they're meant to. Marjorie sat back on her heels, brushing dirt from her gloves. Your father used to say that. Maya walked closer but didn't sit. You always talk like he was a memory. A warning. Not a person. Marjorie removed her gloves and set them on the edge of the flower bed. He was a person. That's the problem. Maya let out a bitter laugh. You know, I used to think you were the strongest woman I'd ever met. Marjorie looked up. And now? I'm not sure what I think anymore. She finally sat on the bench beside the rosebush. The scent was sharp and sweet, almost nauseating. I believed everything you told us, Maya said. Every word. Every ritual. I carried your grief like it was sacred. And when I found that letter, she swallowed, I convinced myself it didn't mean what I knew it meant. You were a child, Marjorie said. I was 25. Marjorie was silent. I told myself the truth would destroy everyone, Maya continued. So I buried it. Like you did. I smiled harder. Made everything neat and tidy. I became the glue. You were never meant to carry that. But I did. Willingly. Because I thought if I just held everything together long enough, we'd heal. But we didn't. We just cracked in private. She paused. I thought if I loved hard enough, I could stop people from leaving. Or falling apart. Marjorie's face softened. You sound like me. Maya met her eyes. That's what terrifies me. A long silence passed between them. I'm angry with you, Maya said finally. Not just for the lie. But for the years I spent trying to live up to a fantasy of us that never existed. For every time I smoothed over Caleb's outbursts. For every time I kept Lena from asking questions. For every moment I made myself small to keep the peace. Marjorie's voice was low. You were trying to survive. I was trying to be good, Maya snapped. But I was being invisible. Her hands trembled as she clasped them in her lap. David asked me last month if I wanted kids. And I couldn't answer. Not because I don't, but because I don't know what kind of family I come from. I don't know what's inside me. Marjorie looked down. That's why I lied. Because I didn't want you to carry his darkness. But I am, Maya said. We all are. It didn't disappear just because you buried it. I know, Marjorie whispered. They sat quietly, the only sound the rustling of wind through the leaves. You should have trusted us, Maya said. Even if we weren't ready, you should have let us hurt honestly, instead of holding it in for decades. Marjorie's lips trembled. I was afraid. Maya nodded. So was I. She reached over and took her mother's hand. Are we going to be okay? Marjorie asked. I don't know, Maya said. But we're not pretending anymore. That's something. Marjorie looked at her daughter, really looked, and for the first time in years, she didn't see a girl trying to smile through tears. She saw a woman, hurt, angry, real. And she was proud of her. The attic was dust-thick and silent. Lena hadn't been up there since she was a teenager. The narrow wooden steps groaned beneath her weight as she climbed, flashlight in hand, each creak echoing like a breath held too long. Cobwebs clung to the beams. Old boxes lined the perimeter like centuries of forgotten years, holiday decorations, outdated electronics, a broken crib. The light from her flashlight swept across objects half swallowed by time. She found the box near the back, metal, rusted, locked with a latch that had been taped shut long ago. She peeled back the brittle masking tape. Inside were documents, old tax returns, a marriage license, and beneath them, another envelope. Her name was written on it. Just her name. In that same rounded cursive. Lena. No date. No return address. She didn't open it immediately. Her fingers traced the edges like it might dissolve in her hands. It felt heavier than it should have, like it carried not just words, but all the weight of what had been unsaid. She sat cross-legged on the attic floor and opened it. The letter was brief. Only a few lines. Lena, you always looked at me like you saw more than I was ready to show. I wanted to be the kind of father you could trust. I know I failed. I know I hurt your mother. I don't know how to fix it. I don't even know if I deserve to. But I hope, someday, you'll understand why I left. And if you can't forgive me, I'll understand that too. Love, Dad. Her chest ached as she read it. Her hands trembled, not from anger, but from the sheer complexity of it. There was no excuse in the words. No denial. But also, no true reckoning. It was half a truth. Like everything he ever gave her, she looked around the attic, the physical archives of a family that had tried, failed, lied, and survived. Then she looked at the letter again. For a long time, she sat in silence. Finally, she stood, walked to the small attic window, and opened it. The early evening air was warm. The trees rustled gently. Below her, the garden glowed in the golden light of dusk. She held the letter to the sunlight and stared at it one last time. Then she struck a match. The flame caught quickly, curling the edges inward. She let it burn. Watched as the paper darkened, folded into itself, and turned to ash. A soft wind carried the remnants out the window, fragments of ink, of apology, of something that might have been love if it hadn't come wrapped in silence. She didn't feel triumphant. She didn't feel rage. She felt empty. But clean. The letter didn't deserve to live in a drawer. Or a shoebox. Or a family story. It was gone now. And in its absence, she felt space open up. Not healing. Not yet. But space, for something else. Maybe later she would regret burning it. But not tonight. Tonight, she let it go. The morning was subdued, the kind of silence that follows not sleep, but exhaustion, the kind that comes after something enormous has cracked and all that remains is dust and breath. The kitchen smelled like coffee and toast. Marjorie moved around quietly, setting out mugs and buttering toast with careful, deliberate movements. She didn't hum like she usually did. She didn't speak. She simply existed in the space like someone learning how to occupy it again. Lena came down first. She wore a sweater she found in the hall closet, oversized and familiar. She poured herself coffee without a word and sat across from her mother. Marjorie didn't look up right away. "Did you sleep?" she finally asked. "No," Lena said. A pause. "I'm not sorry I told you," Marjorie said, barely above a whisper. "I know," Lena replied. Caleb entered next, freshly showered, eyes ringed with dark circles but clear in a way Lena hadn't seen in years. He nodded silently to the table and poured himself coffee. He sat beside Lena and started peeling the label off the sugar jar, piece by piece. Maya followed soon after, hair pulled into a loose braid, wearing David's college sweatshirt. She looked like a child again, older, wiser, stripped of the performance. They all sat at the table. 4 people. 1 missing chair. No one touched the toast. No one filled the air with pleasantries or deflections. It wasn't peaceful. It wasn't warm. But it was true. "I used to think if we all just stayed calm long enough," Maya said softly, "everything would go back to how it was." Caleb gave a short, dry laugh. "We were never okay, Em." "I know," she replied, "but I wanted it so badly I made myself believe it." Lena sipped her coffee. "We all did." Marjorie looked at them, each of them, and her eyes glistened. "I'm sorry," she said again. This time, not as a defense. Not as an offering. But as a simple fact. "I know," Caleb said, quietly. They sat in that small circle of silence, no longer shattered, just still. Lena glanced out the window. The morning light filtered through the trees in thin golden streaks. A breeze moved the wind chimes on the porch, their music distant and delicate. "We're not fixed," she said. "No," Marjorie agreed, "but we're honest." Maya wiped at her eyes and reached for the toast, taking a small bite like it might anchor her. Caleb finally looked up from the sugar jar. "So, what happens now?" No one answered right away. Then Lena said, "We breathe. We talk. We show up even when it's hard. And we stop pretending," Maya added. Caleb nodded slowly. "That might be harder than I thought." Marjorie reached across the table and laid her hand on his. "It'll be a start." For the first time in decades, the family didn't feel like a script waiting to be performed. It felt like people sitting in the ashes of something false, finally willing to build something real, even if it was slow. Even if it was small. Lena looked around the table. It was far from whole. But it was no longer broken in secret. The garden was warm with late morning light. Lena sat on the old wooden bench beneath the lilac tree, her knees pulled up, a cup of tea cooling in her hands. The scent of soil and fading blossoms hung in the air, and bees buzzed somewhere nearby, oblivious to the storm the house had weathered. Marjorie walked slowly down the garden path, a small pair of shears in one hand, but she wasn't pruning this time. She wasn't tending. She just walked until she reached the bench, then sat beside Lena without a word. They stayed like that for a long while. It was Lena who broke the silence. "Do you remember the Christmas you let us open one gift early?" Marjorie smiled faintly. "You all chose the biggest ones. You looked nervous the whole time." "I was. Your father bought them. I didn't want you to see what he thought love looked like." Lena turned her head. "It was a karaoke machine. He never listened to what you really wanted." Lena set her tea down. "I used to imagine you and Dad had some great love before it all fell apart." Marjorie nodded. "We did, for a while. He was kind in the beginning. Charismatic. It happened slowly, the erosion. By the time I realized what he was capable of, I had 3 children and no way out that wouldn't cost me everything. I used to resent you for staying." "I know." Lena's voice lowered. "Then I resented you for making him disappear." Marjorie exhaled. "You think I wanted to erase him?" "I did it because I couldn't see another way. I was tired of hiding bruises. Tired of watching you all flinch when he walked into the room. The fear was growing in you. In Caleb, especially. I saw the way you all shrank under him. Lena stared at the grass. You thought we'd become him. I feared it every day, Marjorie admitted. Especially with Caleb's temper. But also with Maya's silence. And your distance. I kept wondering if I broke you more by staying, or by lying. You broke us either way. Marjorie nodded slowly. I know. Lena turned to face her mother fully. But I see it now, she said. Why you did what you did, why you thought silence was safer. And maybe for a while, it was. I told myself that, too. Lena reached out, gently touching her mother's hand. But we're not children anymore. You don't have to protect us like that. You don't have to carry all the weight alone. Marjorie's eyes welled. She didn't blink them back. I was afraid, she said. Afraid that if I told the truth, you'd hate me. I did, Lena said honestly. But I don't anymore. Tears slipped down Marjorie's cheeks. You were always the one who saw everything too clearly. Even when you didn't have the words, and you were the one who kept us safe, even when it made you the villain. They sat in stillness. The light moved across the garden slowly, painting them both in gold. Marjorie reached for Lena's hand. She held it with both of hers, soft but steady. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. I'm not ready to give it, Lena replied. But I'm not leaving, either. Marjorie smiled through tears. Then maybe that's a beginning. Lena leaned her head against her mother's shoulder, and for the first time in years, they sat not as mother and daughter torn apart by silence, but as two women learning, painfully and slowly, how to live in the truth together. The late afternoon sun painted the driveway in long shadows. The air had that August warmth that clung just a little too long to your skin. Caleb leaned against the hood of his car, arms crossed, sunglasses shielding his eyes. Maya emerged from the porch first, carrying a thermos of iced tea and 2 plastic cups. Lena followed, slowly, slipping on her sandals, her hair up, face relaxed for the first time in days. They didn't speak at first. Maya poured tea into both cups and handed one to Caleb without a word. He took it and raised an eyebrow. Peace offering? She smirked. Hydration. Lena sat on the front step and watched them. Remember when we used to ride our bikes around the cul-de-sac until Mom shouted herself hoarse? Until you crashed into the mailbox, Caleb said. I didn't crash, Lena muttered. I swerved. You flew, Maya said with a small laugh. Elbow to chin. You both laughed while I bled, Lena added. We were very supportive, Caleb said. The laughter was small, but real, not the strained kind. Not the polite kind that served as cover. It came from somewhere deeper now, cleared of pretense. Maya sat beside Lena and handed her a cup. I used to pray every night for us to be a normal family. What's that? Lena asked. I don't think it exists, Caleb said. I think it's just branding. Like toothpaste, Maya added. Or wedding invitations, Lena said. Caleb looked down at his tea. I was terrified this weekend would break me. I think it did, Maya said. He nodded. Yeah. But not the way I thought it would. A moment passed, quiet and unburdened. I burned my letter, Lena said. Caleb looked at her. The one from the attic? Yeah. Didn't even read all of it. Why? Because I didn't want his words to shape what's left of me. I needed that choice. Maya nodded, thoughtful. I think I want to go to the dock, she said. They both looked at her. Hillard's farm. The 4th of July. I think I want to see if he ever shows up. Caleb shook his head. I don't think I could handle it. If he came, I'd want to hurt him. If he didn't, I'd just get hurt again. I'm not going for him, Maya said. I'm going for me, to see who I am when I stand in the truth. They were quiet again. Then Lena said, let me know when. I'll come with you. Caleb gave a small, tired smile. You two are braver than me. You're here, Lena said. That's brave. He nodded slowly. Yeah. I guess it is. Maya leaned her head against Lena's shoulder. I want us to meet again. Soon. Not for Mom. Not because we have to. But because we want to. I'd like that, Lena said. Caleb raised his cup. To showing up. They all tapped cups lightly. No ceremony. No promises. Just presence. Just small steps. Lena drove alone. The sun was dipping low behind the trees, casting gold across the road like threads being pulled toward dusk. Her window was rolled halfway down, and the wind tangled her hair. The quiet hum of tires on asphalt was the only sound. No music. No talk radio. Just the soft rhythm of movement and breath. She passed the edge of town, familiar gas stations, the shuttered toy store, the park where Caleb once broke his arm climbing the jungle gym. Each landmark rose like a wave of memory and receded just as quickly. Then, just past the last traffic light, she saw it. The old diner. Small, chrome still gleaming faintly. A few cars in the lot. A neon open sign flickering against the window. She slowed. This was the place. Where her parents had met. Where her father had proposed. Where, according to Marjorie, he first raised his voice in public. A place stitched into the family mythology long before Lena understood the meaning of legacy. She pulled over. The car idled. Her hand hovered over the gear shift. For a moment, she imagined walking inside. Sitting in a booth. Ordering coffee. Looking around for pieces of him in the scratches on the counter, the booths, the staff who might still remember his name. But she didn't move. She just watched. A waitress wiped down a table near the window. A couple laughed over milkshakes. The normal, spinning world, untouched by the unraveling of a single family's past. Lena reached into her pocket and pulled out a scrap of paper, a torn piece from the notebook she found in the attic. She'd written just 3 words, I'm still here. She stared at them for a long time. Then she folded it once, carefully, and slid it into the glove box. She shifted into drive. The car rolled forward, and she passed the diner without another glance. Ahead, the road curved into the trees, into the unknown. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was fleeing. She felt like she was moving forward. A voice rose in her chest, quiet, steady, not her father's, not her mother's, but her own. There are things we can never fix. But we can stop bleeding. We can walk forward. She kept driving. The sky turned pink behind her. And somewhere, back at that house, the silence had been broken.